When I walked back into my house, what did I find? My bedroom wasn't where it used to be, and there was my daughter-in-law, grinning as she relaxed on the bed. My son piped up, "Hey Dad, relax. This room belongs to us now." I didn't argue with him. I glanced around the room, thinking they definitely chose the wrong person to mess with. But let's rewind to the morning before they claimed my bedroom. I'd just gotten back from spending a couple of weeks up north visiting an old fishing buddy. The house felt unusually quiet, like the calm before the storm. That journey back was long, but I couldn't wait to return home. There's a special comfort in the little things, the smell of coffee brewing in my own kitchen, the creak of the old porch swing, and my late wife's cherished rose garden. This house wasn't just a living space. I built it from scratch when Eleanor passed, a promise to keep her memory alive. She used to say, "Walter, make this house feel like home, even if I'm no longer here." And I did exactly that. Her spirit was in every nail and brush stroke. 3 years ago, my son Caleb and his wife Brianna moved back in. It was meant to be a temporary arrangement, just until they found their footing again. I didn't mind. The house was big enough for all of us. Truth be told, it was nice having people around. Initially, it was peaceful. Brianna would occasionally join me in the kitchen, and Caleb and I would bond over beers on the porch, revisiting his childhood memories, his baseball games, our camping adventures. That time he fell into the lake and came up laughing. I thought maybe this was what aging gracefully felt like. But then, small changes started happening. They brought in new furniture without any discussion. Before I knew it, they were giving the place updates, rearranging the living room, shifting my things. Whenever I brought it up, Caleb would chuckle and say, "Dad, it's been like this for 20 years. It needs a modern touch." I figured, all right, let the youngsters make it their home too. My daily routine remained unchanged. Every morning, I'd wake up before sunrise, sip black coffee by the window, watching the sun chase away the shadows. I often heard Brianna upstairs, her high heels clicking, the hairdryer humming. She was bursting with energy and liked to take charge. Caleb was always more laid back, a good sort, but easily swayed. As a child, when tensions rose, he'd simply stare at his feet. Before leaving for my trip, I handed Caleb the house keys saying, "Take care of this place. It's more than just bricks and wood. It's the story of us." He smiled at me with that same boyish grin he had at 10 years old and promised he would. I believed him. When I came back 15 days later, something felt off immediately. The scent, a mix of fresh paint and unfamiliar perfume, was the first thing. The pictures were gone, Eleanor's old clock missing. I tried to stay calm, telling myself they might have spruced the place up. But when I entered my bedroom, reality hit me. This was no longer my space. The old mahogany bed I'd shared with Eleanor for 25 years was gone, replaced by a sleek, white frame with fancy pillows. The peach walls had changed to gray. Our photos, wedding day, the kids as toddlers, had vanished. As I stood there in shock, Brianna appeared in the doorway, smiling, though her eyes said something else. "Do you like it, Dad?" she asked cheerily. "We redecorated. It fits us better now." Her words felt like a punch. I held onto the door frame to steady myself, resisting the urge to yell, "What on earth are you doing?" Instead, I just nodded, trying to keep calm. But inside, a realization dawned on me. This was just the beginning. They didn't know who they were dealing with. My peace, that quiet trust I had, was about to be shaken. I stood there looking at the room that didn't feel familiar anymore. It was as if they'd erased my mark and doodled their own life over it. "Where's my bed?" I asked softly, surprised at the fragile tone in my voice. Brianna flashed one of her polite smiles, the kind she'd given during family dinners. "Oh, we moved it to the garage. Don't worry, Walter, it's perfectly safe. You'll be in the guest room now. It's a lot cozier. Better for your back, considering your age." Her mention of my age felt like a backhanded insult wrapped in niceties. I forced down a hard swallow. "And you decided not to let me in on this?" She simply shrugged it off like it didn't matter. "Caleb thought you'd like it," she said. They were trying to surprise me, apparently. What a surprise indeed, I thought, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Where's Caleb?" I asked, attempting to regain my composure. "Upstairs," she replied. "We've been working non-stop to get it done. It finally looks modernized." She swept past me like I wasn't even there, an invisible man in my own house. Her perfume lingered in the air, long after she had moved on. Before long, Caleb came downstairs, appearing groggy, wearing a wrinkled t-shirt, and carrying a nervous look like when he was young. "Hey, Dad, I didn't expect you back so soon," he said. "Soon?" I echoed. I'd been clear that I was returning today. He glanced away, almost mumbling. "Yeah, Bree thought you'd like the changes. The place needed a fresh look." All I could do was stand there, thinking back to the boy I raised alone after Eleanor passed away. The one I taught the essentials, how to fish, to work hard, and to earn his keep honestly. "Caleb," I said with a deliberate slowness, "you let her touch my things without asking." He shifted nervously, scratching the back of his neck, a habit he never outgrew. "Dad, it's still your home, but we live here too. Bree just wanted it to feel like home for us all." Home. That word stung. "My home," I replied firmly, my voice steady. "Dad, don't make this an issue, all right? You've had the main room forever. We're hoping to start a family." And I cut him off. "Then find your own place, Caleb." He was stunned, almost frozen. "What?" he managed to say. "You heard me," I told him, stepping up, unshakable. "If more room is needed, find it elsewhere. This house is my life's work, not built for your family's expansion." Brianna came back in, wine glass in hand, trying to keep it light-hearted, but her words edged with steel. "Walter, let's not blow this up. We just wanted to spruce things up a bit. It's not like we threw your things out." She glanced at Caleb, then back at me. "We still have your old dresser in the garage." The garage? My thoughts ran wild with images of the damp conditions, dust layers, the scent of oil and cold concrete. My past boxed up like it was nothing more than refuse. I headed downstairs without a peep. They followed. Opening the garage felt like crossing into an old, forgotten world. There, against the wall, stood my old dresser. A photo of Eleanor and me, her radiant smile marred by a crack. The bed, broken apart, was tucked in a corner with boxes labeled "Dad's Stuff." As I touched the wood, it felt icy, rough, like tracing a scar. "See?" Brianna said, sipping her wine. "We kept everything." I faced her. "All you've kept are the remnants," I quietly replied. "But you discarded the dignity." Silence blanketed everything. Without shouting or tears, I felt something within me change. Quiet, heavy, final. "Walter," Caleb began, "we're sorry." I halted him. "Enough." My voice was unwavering and calm. Only the freezer's hum and the occasional drip from a leaky pipe broke the silence. "You both want more space," I finally said. "Fine, go find it, but not here." Brianna's smile vanished. "You can't be serious. It's our home too." Caleb tried to protest, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Not anymore," I stated. "His name's not on this deed. This is my home. Always has been." Caleb's voice trembled. "Dad, please don't do this." I really looked at him, the son I raised now beside a woman who saw me as mere furniture. "I'm not the one doing this," I said in a soft voice. "You are." I turned and started up the stairs, each step a pull on my heartstrings. And as I reached the top, I caught Brianna's voice, sharp and dismissive, saying, "He's bluffing." But it wasn't a bluff. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. That night, forget about getting any sleep. I ended up at the kitchen table, the yellow lamp casting its warm light over a heap of receipts and half-finished coffee mugs. The house had this chill to it, like the very walls were waiting quietly. Every little sound, the fridge's hum, the pipes complaining, felt hollow and empty. Upstairs, Caleb and Brianna snoozed away in my room, their laughter from earlier just another part of the silence. I couldn't bring myself to go up there. I just stayed, eyes fixed on a cracked photo of Eleanor I'd dug out from the garage. Her smile under that lamp's glow looked alive and encouraging, like she was telling me to keep my chin up and protect what we had built together. I thought about Caleb as a kid, sprinting through the halls with baseball dirt on his shoes. I'd scold him, but a grin and a quick sorry from him, and I couldn't stay mad. "Dad, I'll manage," was his usual line, and as any dad would, I let him slide. But this wasn't a little mess. It was a full-on betrayal. The next morning, I wandered outside, where the autumn air had a sharp edge. I settled into the porch swing, our swing, and watched as the sun crept over the yard. For a moment, peace seemed possible, but deep down, I knew something had changed. I had to grasp why. Why my own son let this happen. Why he stood by in silence while someone else took what wasn't theirs. Later, things started coming into focus. I caught Brianna in the backyard, phone glued to her ear as she paced. At first, I wasn't eavesdropping, but then she chuckled and said, "Once we're done with the renovations, it'll be legally ours." Those words were like a kick in the gut. Legally ours. She kept talking. "He's old, Nancy. He won't fight it. A few updates, and we have a case for possession. Gotten legal advice on it." My blood ran cold. Quietly, I fished out my phone and recorded, noting her casual confidence. After she hung up, I headed back inside, mind spinning. This wasn't just disrespect, it was a calculated move. Later that night, with Caleb and Brianna out, I slipped into Caleb's study. Bills were everywhere. Credit card debt, late car payments, and then a loan document that took my breath away. It was for $27,500, and it was secured against my house. Problem? The signature had my name, but the middle initial was plain wrong. Fraud. I sat there, clutching the evidence, the room echoing with the somber tick of the clock. No anger, just a deep, heavy hurt. My son did this. The same boy who'd nod off on my shoulder on long drives. I didn't lose it. I breathed until my trembling hands steadied. A glance at Eleanor's picture brought her gentle reminder. Patience, Walt. Even storms pass if you wait them out. So, I waited. Next morning, I rang my daughter Maya. She was 3 states away, but the tremble in my voice got her attention right away. "Dad," she said softly, "what's going on?" I spelled it all out, the cutting remarks, the papers, the deceit. Silence hung in the air until Maya, composed, reassured me. "Don't do anything rash. I'll handle it. Just don't confront them until I get there." I agreed. For the next few days, I played the role of the quiet old man, cooking breakfast, patching up things around the house, even managing a smile when Brianna unveiled her renovation plans. Caleb barely said a word, probably eaten up by guilt. But I was changing too. Beneath my calm exterior, I was laying groundwork. Each night by the window, I pieced together dates, chats, screenshots, receipts, and that crucial recording. This wasn't a wall I was building. It was a case. When Maya finally pulled into the driveway after 3 long days, I was ready. I welcomed her, handing over a slim folder labeled House Records. As she flipped through the pages, her deepening frown said it all. She finally glanced up, her eyes sharp and confident. "Dad," she said, "you've got all you need." Her voice held a certainty that I hadn't heard in weeks, and it comforted me. That night I slept well, knowing things were about to change. Maya stayed with me for 3 days, and during that short time, she was like a calm island in the middle of my storm. I would find her early in the morning at the dining table, with her laptop open, papers scattered around, and a cup of coffee that was slowly going cold. She'd take notes, highlight passages, and occasionally lift her head with a focus that reminded me of her mother. "Dad," she said one morning, "we're tackling this without anger. We'll be clean, quiet, and legal." That was exactly what I longed for. Just the truth, straightforward and without chaos or rage. We began by looking at the loan documents. Maya scrutinized them, tracing the signature with her pen. "They didn't even try to mimic your signature," she noted. "They got the middle initial wrong." She set the papers aside and turned to me. "This isn't just unethical," she explained, suggesting there was more at stake. "Dad, this is fraud. The bank will have a meltdown once they discover this." Then she showed me a pile of receipts, evidencing thousands spent on light fixtures, fake plants, and a new bathtub, all charged to Caleb's credit cards. Shaking her head, Maya said, "They're trying to claim ownership by making upgrades. It's sneaky, but they're leaving a clear trail." As she talked, I looked out the window. The maple trees had started to change with the season, their red and gold leaves covering the swing Eleanor adored. That metal bench Brianna installed sparkled, but it was cold, reflecting her taste. I quietly asked, "So, what do we do next?" Maya gave a slight grin. "Now, we assemble the truth, piece by piece." The next morning, I followed my routine, made coffee, fed the birds, kept quiet. Brianna came downstairs in her silk robe, wearing a smile as if everything was normal. "Morning, Walter. Sleep all right in the guest room?" she chirped. I smiled back, unfazed. She missed the small black folder on the counter and Maya's car parked down the street. Over 2 days, my daughter collected all the legal evidence we needed: the deed with my notarized signature, a recorded conversation featuring Brianna, and the fake loan Caleb drafted. She even contacted the bank manager directly. "Mr. Hayes' signature was forged," she stated calmly. "Expect a formal notice first thing tomorrow." Once she hung up, she turned to me. "Dad, hold off on confronting them. Let them come clean. If not, we'll ensure justice prevails." That evening, Caleb came up to me in the kitchen, looking worn and troubled. "Dad, can we talk?" he muttered. I nodded and set my cup down. "Of course." He hesitated, glanced up the stairs to make sure Brianna wasn't listening. "She said you were being difficult," he began softly. "I didn't know she moved your stuff. I should have stopped it." In that moment, it reminded me of him as a child, apologizing for breaking a window with a baseball. "Caleb," I said, "you forged my name on a loan." His face fell apart. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to get caught," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "But you did it." He raked a hand through his hair, regret shining in his eyes. "I just wanted to make her happy. She said it was temporary, that we'd pay it off before you found out." "Temporary theft," I said, "is still theft." He winced. Before he could say anything else, Maya walked in. Calm and determined, she laid papers on the table. "Caleb," she said evenly, "everything's out in the open now." He froze. Pointing at the fake loan form, she said, "This is elder financial fraud, and," holding up another paper, "here's Brianna's scheme to take this house. We have the evidence to press charges, but we're giving you a chance to set things right." Just then, Brianna stormed in, her voice cutting through the tension. "What's going on here?" Maya, unfazed by the intrusion, calmly laid it out. "You've got 48 hours to vacate the premises. Any claims you think you have are gone. Sign this agreement and leave quietly, or we settle this in court." Brianna's face turned a ghostly shade. "You can't kick us out," she sputtered. I spoke up, keeping my voice low but steady. "I absolutely can. This is my home. Always has been." She looked to Caleb, hoping he'd back her up, but he was focused on the floor. His silent stance was louder than any words. Maya pushed the pen across the table to them. "Your call." With trembling hands, Brianna hesitated, but eventually signed. Caleb followed suit, his signature small and unsure. After collecting the papers, Maya sighed. That's it. We're done. As they trudged upstairs to pack, I remained seated, feeling the house shift, not lighter yet, but ready. The storm was over. Now, it was just a matter of time. For the next 2 days, a heavy, strange silence took over the place. It wasn't awkward, just the kind that hangs around after a storm has swept through, clearing the air. Brianna busied herself with packing, muttering under her breath as she slammed drawers. Caleb was there too, silent and worn out, guilt hanging heavy on him like an old coat. I didn't need to say a thing. I went about my normal day, made my coffee, fed the birds, sat by the kitchen window enjoying the morning light spilling in. There's something to be said for keeping it chill when the world feels like it's falling apart. Maya was steady and efficient, getting all the paperwork sorted. She didn't miss a beat. Caleb and Brianna had no claim left on 214 Brookhaven Road, end of story. Caleb, caught for forgery, signed a repayment deal. $27,500 docked from his salary each month, clear as day with no loopholes. That evening, when the moving truck pulled up, I watched from the porch. Brianna emerged with her bags, pale and wordless. Caleb came after, hands shaking as he loaded the last box. He turned to me, looking smaller than I'd seen in a long time. "Dad," he mumbled. "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I get it." He paused, then added, "I never thought it would go this far. I just wanted to make her happy." I took a deep breath. "And risking everything I own was your solution?" His eyes dropped, shame written all over him. "Son," I said gently, "you have a chance to start fresh, but start with what's true. It's something you can carry easier." His chin wobbled, but he nodded and headed for the truck, where Brianna was already inside, engrossed in her phone. Not once did she look back. I watched the truck drive down the street until the brake lights were just a memory, and when the sound faded away, the silence that followed felt peaceful. That night, I wandered through the house, room by room. It felt new, lighter, unencumbered. I opened the door to my old bedroom. The bed pieces were leaning against the wall, ready to be assembled. A stack of boxes marked Dad's stuff rested in one corner. I found an old picture of Eleanor, cleaned the cracked glass, and hung it above the bed where it belonged. "Welcome home," I whispered. The next morning, I whipped up some pancakes for Maya. Over her cup of coffee, she grinned. "The house feels different, Dad. It's like it's breathing again." I grinned back. "It is." The news spread fast over the weeks that followed. Caleb's forgery came to light, and as a result, he was demoted, with part of his paycheck going to cover the debt. Brianna ended up landing a job at a small real estate office in a nearby town. Eventually, they went their separate ways. I didn't throw a party, but there was a quiet sense of closure. A few months down the line, on a lazy Sunday, there was a gentle knock at my door. Caleb was standing there. He looked a bit worn out, like he'd been through some things, holding a simple envelope. "I wanted you to have this," he said as he handed it to me. It was a check, a piece of the debt he was starting to pay back. "I'm doing my best, Dad," he murmured. I gave him an encouraging nod. "That's the spirit. Keep going." He lingered on the threshold for a second, taking in the room. "You've spruced up the place," he noted. "Yep," I replied. "This time it's all mine." He offered a small, almost bashful smile and headed off. I watched as he melted away into the dimming day. Once the door clicked shut, the tranquility that settled wasn't about missing something, but about having everything in its right place again. In that stillness, I felt a newfound freedom. It's curious how peace sneaks back into your life, not with a blast or shouts, but with stillness. The atmosphere in the house had been stiff for ages. Each room felt like it had buttons tightened too hard, each corner holding a chill. But after the last box left, it was like the whole place breathed a sigh of relief. As I wandered around, touching the wooden handrails, looking at the photos, and the walls Eleanor had carefully painted, it never felt like it was about triumph. It was about reclaiming dignity, one step at a time. They say revenge burns bright, but honestly, real revenge is quiet and takes its time. It's about setting things right without compromising who you are. Caleb still crosses my mind often. He pops by some Sundays and we chat about small things, the weather, his job, how he's putting money aside again. He's figuring it out, and that's all I need to see. Now, Brianna, her name doesn't enter our conversations, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes, silence says more than words could. The knowledge we gain sometimes shows up a little too late to share directly. That night, when I finally reclaimed my room, I threw the window open as wide as it would go. The breeze felt just right. The curtains fluttered softly with every gust, and for the first time in what felt like ages, the house seemed to welcome me in. I looked up at Eleanor's picture that hung above the bed and softly said, "You knew best, my love. Patience really is a virtue." Because that's what all this was. No grievances, no hard feelings, just taking back what was always mine to start with. My bedroom had become a battleground. My daughter had closed me out for what seemed like an endless 12-year stretch. Then, out of nowhere, she and her husband showed up at my door, fancy luggage and smug smiles in tow. She said, "Dad, since you're now a man of wealth, we've decided it's time to move in." There was this smile I couldn't hold back. Part of it was joy, but mostly it was something else because she had no idea what those years had taught me or what plans I'd made. Before diving into that tale, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you're listening, subscribe and share where you're from. Each story brings a piece of my life with it. Some parts sting, others offer comfort, but there's a lesson in each worth passing on. Knowing you're listening makes me realize that no matter our age, there's always wisdom to earn and stories to tell. I'm Samuel Whitaker, though most people around here still call me Mr. Whitaker, the shop teacher who could mend anything but struggled with fixing his own family. I'm 72 now. My knees creak just as much as the floorboards. My hands aren't as steady as they once were. I've come to understand that silence has its own melody. In the morning, it settles around me, mixed with the whistle of the kettle and the rhythmic tick of the old clock above the kitchen door. Each day starts the same: black coffee, no frills. I sit by the window, watching the light stretch across the lake, gently brushing the oak tree I planted when my daughter Lauren came into this world. Back then, life felt so straightforward. I spent 6 days a week at Oak Ridge High, teaching students how to turn raw wood into something beautiful. Lauren was always lingering around my workspace, bits of sawdust tangled in her hair, swinging her legs and bombarding me with endless questions that I never got tired of answering. I used to joke about how someday she'd inherit the whole world, not realizing she might try to snag mine first. After losing her mother, it was just the two of us, and I pulled out all the stops to keep her life steady, covering college fees, getting her first car, and even chipping in half for her wedding, all the while patching roofs and pinching pennies to afford what she needed. When she tied the knot with Ethan, I backed them all the way and even split my savings with them, telling them money can be made again, but time, not so much. Funny thing, time was exactly what they ended up taking from me. Gradually, the phone calls became brief and eventually ceased, and holidays lost their sparkle. One Christmas, I found myself at a table for two with just one plate left untouched. The next Christmas, the invite didn't even come. Suddenly, 12 years flew by, like a single smooth road that never bends. There were no calls, cards, or visits. Folks would wonder if I was mad. At first, not really. I was hurt more than anything, a kind of pain that doesn't roar but just seizes a quiet corner in your soul. I kept telling myself she was tied up with life, and she'd remember to call once things settled down. But the funny thing about life is, it goes on settling itself without you. When it was time to retire, I sold off my old tools one at a time. Some former students, all grown up now, helped me clear out the shop. On my last day, Terry, one of them, handed me an envelope. "Try your luck, Mr. W," he suggested. Inside was a lottery ticket. I gave a soft laugh, tucked it into my Bible, and kind of forgot it was there. Months down the line, I stumbled on it again, and reading those numbers nearly made me drop my coffee. It wasn't the jackpot, but it was more than enough to shake things up. After taxes, it left me with $3.6 million, enough to patch up the leaky roof, do a bit of traveling, and stop stressing over which bills to knock out first every month. I kept the windfall under wraps. Old habits die hard, you know. Money can't rewind the clock, but it can make getting older a little comfier. I got myself a modest place near Lakewood, a place full of peace and purpose. My mornings were for digging into the earth, afternoons for devouring books, and evenings for tinkering in the kitchen. I didn't get lonely. I was content, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't waiting on anyone. But peace, as it turns out, has a funny way of slipping away right when you least expect it. That happened on a picture-perfect Thursday morning, still bright as the kettle began to dance. I was about to burst into song when I heard the tires crunch on the gravel outside. A quick peek through the window showed me a sleek, shiny black SUV soaking up the sun. There were two inside. When the doors swung open, my heart nearly stopped. It was Lauren. She stood there after 12 years with no contact, stepping out in grand shades, her smile as sharp as a blade. Right behind her, Ethan lugged two neat suitcases right up to my porch. For a heartbeat, I hoped she was back because she actually missed me. But as she neared, I could see it. Her confidence screamed someone who meant to take, not to reconcile. She wasn't here for me, but for what she believed was hers. I stood there with cooling coffee in hand, watching as the life I had painstakingly pieced together seemed to crumble beneath her stylish heels. But this chapter was drawing to a close. Lauren showed up on my doorstep like she owned it, hair impeccable, perfume heavy, and her smile as poised as ever. Behind her, Ethan handled two matching leather cases, the kind made for show, not frequent journeys. "Dad," she cooed, syrupy sweet, like the little girl who always got her way. "It's been such a long time." 12 years, I replied, flat as a board. "Enough time to forget your dad's face." Her eyes darted away for a second. "You've really done well. This house is lovely, cozy." She was already taking in the living room as if placing a price tag on it. "Must be odd here all alone." "Got used to the solitude," I replied, holding the door open. "Come on in." They walked in expecting to be welcomed. Ethan's polished shoes clicked loudly on the wooden floor as his eyes swept over the family photos on the mantel. He seemed to be assessing, figuring what could be monetized. Finally, he spoke in a silky, yet empty voice. "We heard about your good fortune, Sam. Lauren's been thinking about you. Handling all that cash all by yourself isn't the smartest move, you know. Someone might try to take advantage of you." I chuckled softly, almost rolling my eyes. "And who's this someone supposed to be?" Lauren's voice got a little higher. "Dad, he's not saying it like that. We just think it's not a good idea for you to be out here all alone. You need family, folks who care, around." "Family?" I repeated softly. "You mean the same family that didn't check in even once over the last 12 years? An awkward silence filled the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Lauren shifted where she sat, and Ethan cleared his throat, gearing up for his rescue role. "It's been tough for us these past few years. The market hasn't been kind. My firm hit a rough patch. We thought maybe it'd be beneficial for us all to stay here for a bit, just until things get better." There it was, the real reason they were here. I nodded slowly, gesturing to the living room couch. "All right, let's discuss this family gathering of yours." They settled on the couch, striving to look composed while their eyes darted across the room. Lauren laid a hand gently on Ethan's knee, letting him know she still had the reins here. I sat across from them, my cup of coffee getting lukewarm on the table between us. "So," I began, "what exactly do you feel you're owed?" Lauren's face drew back as if I'd hit her, and Ethan let out a shaky laugh. "Owed, Sam? No one's owed anything. This is about supporting each other." "Supporting?" I leaned in a bit. "That's funny because last time we talked, my so-called support was nothing but a nuisance to you." Lauren's face paled. "Dad, that was a long time ago. I was upset." I cut in. "You were 31, Lauren, old enough to know words can cut deep." Ethan looked uneasy, shifting slightly. "We were under a lot of stress. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed slowly. "Do you even know what a mistake means? A mistake is forgetting to turn off the oven. What you chose to do was deliberate." She attempted a smile despite the sting. "We thought maybe after so long, there could be a fresh start, to rebuild together as a family." "Rebuild?" I chuckled. "You can't rebuild something you intentionally demolished." Her expression showed the hit, like a burst of cold water. Briefly, I saw the fear beneath her calm demeanor. Ethan averted his gaze, pretending to show interest in the decor. "You've both been having financial issues, haven't you?" I asked. Ethan stiffened. Lauren tensed up. "How did you—" "I still live in the town you grew up in," I said, keeping my tone even. "People talk, especially when they see luxury cars getting towed off and credit collectors circling." As they stood there, the awkwardness was practically visible, making them wordless. Their embarrassment was shifting into anger. Perfect. Sometimes honesty hurts, but it's necessary. Lauren finally stood, saying, "We just wanted to patch things up, Dad. No need to throw it back at us." I kept my tone level, replying, "You didn't come to reconnect. You came because you heard a number, and that number had commas." Her face twisted with a mix of disbelief and maybe guilt. "You've got it wrong," she snapped. "Am I?" I asked quietly. "Then why'd you show up with suitcases?" The silence that hung in the air was louder than shouting. Even Ethan, who always had something slick to say, was left looking at the floor. I rose slowly, the chair protesting beneath me. "You both think you're here to rescue me, but you've got it confused. I'm not the one who needs saving." Lauren's lip trembled. "Dad, please, we can fix this." "Maybe," I said. "But that depends on who you both really are deep down." She blinked, clearly unsure of my response. "What do you mean?" she inquired. I looked at the two of them, dressed to the nines yet strangers to me. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, calm washed over me. "It means this isn't over. You came here thinking you could redirect my life, but in the end, you'll learn what true responsibility feels like." I moved toward the window, watching the sun catch the steam rising from my coffee. My reflection looked back at me, older, wiser, solid as a rock. In that moment, I promised myself something. They thought I'd just let it all slide, choose to stay quiet. They would soon find out they were very wrong. I wouldn't keep quiet about all this. That evening, after everyone left, the place felt off, almost hollow. It wasn't home anymore. Instead, it was filled with a kind of silence that just sat heavy in your chest, refusing to go away. Their voices hung around in the corners like the lingering smell of smoke on your clothes long after the fire's out. I plopped myself down in my old armchair, watching shadows stretch out across the floor. The clock was ticking in the background, each tick like a reminder of the time lost. Years had slipped through my fingers without a single call or visit, my daughter choosing distance over family. I grabbed a glass of whiskey, the good stuff I save for tough nights, and stepped out onto the porch. The night air was sharp and fresh. Out across the yard, the lake shimmered in the moonlight like a polished piece of metal. I thought back to sitting there with Lauren when she was just a kid, her small head resting against me, tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb as we watched fireflies. I'd whisper promises into her hair, vowing to always be there, making sure she'd never feel alone. And I stuck to those promises. She didn't. The first few years after she cut me off were brutal. I'd call and always end up at her voicemail. Sometimes I'd leave a message, but after a while, it felt pointless. I sent cards that came back unopened, letters that never got a response. I recall one Thanksgiving like it happened yesterday. Drove 2 hours to her city with a homemade pecan pie, only to find out she'd moved, no note, no address to forward to. I sat in my truck for what felt like ages, the pie growing cooler on the seat beside me, until it hit me. I had no idea where my own daughter lived anymore. People from church would casually ask how she was, and I'd lie with a smile saying, "Oh, she's busy. You know how young folks are these days." But the truth was far less rosy. Real talk? I wasn't a part of her life anymore. Over time, loneliness became my constant companion, and I stopped making dinner for two, quit checking my phone before bed. Eventually, you let go of hope. When that hope quiets down, you find a new rhythm to your days. But that calm is fragile, and when she showed up that morning, it wasn't a gentle re-entry. She came back like a storm. I lingered on the porch, watching my breath puff into little white clouds in the chilly air. They probably thought they could lean on me again, that I was still the reliable old dad who never said no. But I wasn't that guy anymore. 12 years of silence had turned me into someone else, colder, tougher, less forgiving. I drained my whiskey, peering into the empty glass. The moon's reflection trembled there, and I could almost hear my late wife's calm voice. "Don't let bitterness make you like them." I chuckled to myself. She always had a way of cutting through the noise. No, I wasn't bitter about it all. I was clear, and clarity is sharper than any anger. Inside, I flicked on the old lamp in the corner, letting its soft glow warm the room. The quiet was still there, but this time, it wasn't a lonely kind of quiet. It was one of focus. An old photo album sat on the table, untouched for who knows how long. I opened it up, and there was Lauren, at 6 with that gap-toothed smile and sawdust in her hair, at 12 holding a trophy with pride shining in her eyes, and at 21 beaming in her graduation cap and gown, arm draped around me. That's the last picture we took together. I stared at it for what felt like ages, feeling that familiar sting in my eyes. Then, I gently shut the album and let out a long breath. Tears can't fix what's broken. Actions can. I made my way to my study, opened up that bottom drawer, and fished out the old folder I'd been saving as my backup plan for years. It was jam-packed with names, phone numbers, financial contacts, a few attorneys, my accountant, and a guy named Frank Dobson, a retired investigator I got to know through a friend. I remember Frank once telling me, "Sam, getting older doesn't slow you down. It just gives you a better chance to spot things others overlook." He was dead right. That night, I saw it all. The way Ethan couldn't meet my eyes when money came up, the hitch in Lauren's voice before she pasted on a smile, how they already talked about this place like it was theirs. They figured they were pulling a fast one on an old man. What they didn't know was I'd mastered the art of seeing through people who underestimated me. I leaned back, listened to the rain trickle down the windows, each drop whispering the same thing. They got you once. Don't let it happen again. For the first time in 12 years, I was free of sadness or doubt. I was ready. As I turned off the lights and gazed out over the darkened water, a lasting thought took hold, the kind that stays with you long after night folds into day. I began to plan with care. Come morning, I was up before the sun. Sleep escaped me, but clarity was a fine companion. There's a kind of quiet power in knowing you've been duped, yet choosing not to react on impulse. At 72, I've discovered that the wisest actions are those taken with patience and calm. Move too quickly, and you show your hand. Wait a while, and you see theirs. Lauren and Ethan had no clue how every word, twitch, and nervous glance from the day before was tucked away in my mind. I'd figured them out, those who count on charm to hide their true aims. For over a decade, they acted like I was a non-entity, and now, out of nowhere, I'd become their gold mine. They thought they were shacking up with an old guy too soft-hearted to say no. But here's the truth. They weren't moving in. They were in for a reality check. I kicked off my day like I always did. Black coffee, a cursory glance at the paper, and a few stretches for my cranky hip. But there was a notable addition, a notepad and pen sitting beside the paper. At the top, I'd scribbled 3 straightforward words: protect, expose, rebuild. That was my game plan. 3 steps, no shortcuts. Step 1, protect. I called up my financial advisor, Greg, a bright young man with a talent for numbers and a strong moral compass. "Greg," I told him, "make sure my estate is locked down tight." He laughed, thinking I was talking about taxes. "Worried about taxes, Sam?" "Nah," I answered. "People." Ethan got as tense as I'd ever seen him since their wedding day, when he whispered in my ear that I'd done an all-right job raising her. All right. Those words had lingered since then. Now, it was my chance to show just how all right I could be. I contacted Frank Dobson, the lone investigator I truly trusted. "Frank," I said, "I need a hand. Discreet work." He chuckled. "You hunting a thief, Sam?" I grinned. Something like that. By the time evening rolled around, Frank was on the case. He still had his ways of getting to the heart of things around the state. In a few days, he'd unearth whatever mess my daughter and her husband had gotten themselves into. Debts, lies, maybe even worse. Step 3. Rebuild. Not my home or my finances, they were solid. I meant bringing back the trust that had eroded over time. If Lauren wanted back into my life, she was going to have to earn it, step by step. And if she thought she could manipulate me, she'd hit a dead end, as I'd be holding all the keys. About a week passed, and the first report came in. Frank sent it to me neatly sealed in an envelope. I read it at the kitchen table, letting the morning sun illuminate the words. What I discovered wasn't shocking. It just confirmed my suspicions. My daughter and her husband had dug themselves deep into debt, nearly $300,000 worth of unpaid loans. Different types of credit cards, risky investments, you name it. Ethan and Lauren were in a heap of trouble. Ethan's so-called consulting business, it hadn't landed a real client in what seemed like forever. They even asked Nora's parents for money, spinning some yarn about growing their business. But the cash? It mostly went towards keeping up their image. They were teetering on a precarious line of deceit, desperately hoping not to fall. The more I dug, the murkier things got. Behind my back, they spun stories to the family, claiming I'd lost my senses and couldn't manage my money. It was all part of a plan to take everything if I slipped up. It wasn't just the lies that hurt, but the thought-out way they were put together. This didn't happen overnight. They'd been plotting long before they knocked on my door. I took a deep breath, placed the evidence back in the envelope, and tucked it away. They thought they were the only ones planning ahead, but they were in for a surprise. That evening, I invited them over for dinner. Lauren sounded all cheerful on the phone, but I knew it was an act. "We'd love to, Dad," she said in that upbeat tone. "It'll be nice to catch up." I bet Ethan was whispering tips to her in the background. When they arrived, the table was set with all her childhood favorites: steak, mashed potatoes, green beans. For a brief moment, I saw that familiar spark in her eyes, but then she noticed the legal documents on the counter. "What's that?" she asked, trying to stay calm. "Oh, those," I said with a casual shrug. "Just estate papers. Thought I'd look them over." Her interest was piqued, and Ethan leaned in a bit. "Estate documents?" he echoed. "Yep," I nodded, sipping my water. "Just planning ahead, you know, in case anything happens." The air was thick with tension. They were waiting for their opportunity, unaware it had slipped right past them. After dinner, I walked them to the door, maintaining the same comforting smile I'd use when she was little. Good seeing you both, I said softly. Maybe next week we can discuss your plans, she suggested eagerly. Oh, I've got plans, I replied, locking eyes with her. Big ones. A week later, I finally sprang into action. By then, Frank's report was ready, and it revealed more than I'd anticipated. Fraudulent documents, fake excuses, even an investigation linked to Ethan's name. Each page uncovered another layer of their deceit. They weren't victims of circumstance. They were orchestrating the whole debacle. That Sunday, I sipped my coffee, pulled back the curtains, and looked out at the serene lake. The time had come. Right on cue, Lauren and Ethan arrived, full of anticipation. She wore an overly sweet smile, and he touched her shoulder with a false display of affection. "Dad," she chimed, beaming, "we brought breakfast. Thought we could spend a lovely day together." Her voice was sugary, but her eyes were sharp as knives. "Perfect," I nodded, letting them in. We moved to the living room where sunlight streamed over the coffee table, highlighting the 2 manila folders waiting there. I gestured for them to sit. "Before we dig in, there's something I need to show you." Lauren hesitated. "What's all this?" she asked warily. "A bit of research," I replied. "Guess I got curious." I slid the first folder across the table toward them. "Your financial records." Ethan's smile wavered. "I don't see why that's necessary." "Oh, I think it is," I replied coolly. I laid it all out, page by page. Maxed out credit cards, unpaid loans, a hidden second mortgage, and a foreclosure notice. Lauren's face hardened. "You had no right," she started to argue. I raised a hand to stop her. "The moment you both demanded to move in here, that's when you lost that right, Lauren. You assumed my age meant I was helpless." Ethan squirmed in his seat, looking pale. "This is private," he muttered. "You've crossed a line." "No," I corrected him. "That line was crossed when you told everyone I'd lost my mind and couldn't manage my own affairs." Silence filled the room, interrupted only by the ticking clock. In a soft voice, Lauren attempted, "Dad, we didn't mean—" "Enough!" I cut in sharply, making my point unmistakably clear. She cut me off mid-sentence, saying, "Stop feeding me lies. You two set this up. You're eyeing my assets." I leaned back, letting the awkward silence take over the room. "Okay, let's move on to the second folder." Ethan gulped, clearly uneasy. "What's inside?" he inquired. "Police reports," I said, opening it up. His face went white. I read aloud, "Filed by Marcus Wheeler, your former business partner, accusing you of embezzling $50,000 from company funds. Evidence turned over to the district attorney." Lauren's eyes went wide with disbelief. "Ethan," she gasped. He shot her a glare. "It's not what it looks like." I gave a little smirk. "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like. The DA is still deciding on charges, but there's a way out. Marcus is willing to drop it all if you pay him back now." Her voice shook. "You talked to him?" "Yes, I did," I confirmed, standing up. "He's more decent than you two gave him credit for. He thought maybe, just maybe, your newly wealthy dad could help clear the debt." Lauren's lips trembled. "So this is about embarrassing us, right?" I took a moment and looked at her. "No, sweetheart. This is about facing the music." Ethan's voice cracked. "We're about to lose it all." "Yes," I answered quietly. "Everything you tried to take from others. But maybe losing it all is what's needed to remember who you were before greed ate you up." I went to my desk and grabbed a final envelope. "This," I said, setting it down, "contains the contact info for a top-tier bankruptcy lawyer in the state. I'm offering $25,000. Half goes to the lawyer. The rest starts the debt repayment, but there are strings attached." Lauren's eyes widened. "Strings?" "Yep. You both must go to therapy, real therapy, separately. You have to repay everyone you've tricked, and get real jobs, honest work. No more scams or pretending. Truly start fresh. Ethan rubbed his forehead, looking worn out. That's going to take years. Maybe that's how long it'll take to relearn what integrity feels like, I replied. He appeared crushed, utterly defeated. But Lauren looked genuinely shattered, her past arrogance gone. Dad, she murmured, I don't deserve your help. No, I said gently. You don't, but you need it. And I need to believe you can turn back into the person I thought you could be. She started crying softly. For a second, I almost comforted her. Almost. But offering help without a lesson isn't love, it's giving up. And I wasn't giving up this time. You have one day to decide, I said firmly. If you agree, I'll call the lawyer. If not, you'll face Marcus's charges. The clock chimed at 3, the sound echoing like a final verdict. They stood there, wordless. Lauren tried to hold my hand, but I stayed put. Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Go, I said gently. Reflect on it. Make the right choice. They left without a word, the door closing behind them, leaving me alone in the silence. For the first time in 12 years, I felt like I wasn't the one being abandoned. I felt free, and in that quiet, I finally felt unburdened. The following morning seemed to dawn a bit slower than usual. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee, watching the steam rise and vanish, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known for years. Not the solitude kind, but the deep kind you get when you stand firm. At exactly 8:47, the phone broke the silence. Lauren's voice was soft, shaky, but genuine. Dad, she said, we've thought it over. We'll do it. All of it. The therapy, the restitution, the jobs. We want to make things right. I held back, just hearing her breathe on the other end. Then I asked just one thing. Lauren, if I hadn't struck it rich, if I still lived in that little apartment, would you have called? The line went quiet. Then, barely audible, she admitted, no, probably not. I was too ashamed. It was painful, but it was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. Thank you, I told her. That's what I needed to hear. I forgave her, not because she earned it, but because I refused to let the past keep wrecking the rest of my life. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's about taking back your peace from those who didn't appreciate it. After we hung up the phone, I looked at Lauren and said, Lauren, it's no longer about me trying to save you. This is your last shot. I need you to show me you can be honest and prove you've learned your lesson. Her voice was shaky as she assured me, I promise, Dad, I will. After I ended the call, I stayed there for a while, just thinking. The morning sun hit the lake outside, making it shimmer beautifully. Inside, my house felt warm and lively again, not because my family had returned, but because I finally felt a sense of belonging. 2 years from that moment, they'd have a chance to start fresh. As for me, every new day started with the understanding that real wealth doesn't revolve around money. It's about setting healthy limits, finding inner peace, and knowing when it's time to let go. Yes, my daughter avoided me for 12 years until she found out I had money. But in the end, the most valuable thing I gained was my own freedom.